All right, on this particular reading, I am reading from Automobile Magazine from January of 2019. Letter from the editor. Heritage, lineage, honor. The car was right-hand drive. My legs rubbed up against the steering wheel as I worked the teardrop-shaped nub of a shift knob through the gears, and the 3.2-liter V6 gnashed mechanically behind my head. We couldn't have been going more than 50 miles an hour, but it didn't matter. It was about the context, the history. I was afforded a rare opportunity to make a pilgrimage to Honda's Takasu Proving Ground, located in the central region of the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido, to drive the updated 2019 Acura NSX. While there, I had a chance to do a quick run in a Japanese market 2001 NSX Type S, complete with a comically small, square Space Invader style navigation system perched atop the dash. Time warp stuff. Takashu is where Honda conducted a chunk of development work on the first generation NSX. And although much of the engineering, styling, and production of the new era NSX was offloaded to America, the powertrain work was largely handled by a team in Japan, and Takasu played a role. With its mix of a high-speed oval, skid pad, winter testing area, it gets wicked cold on Hokkaido, mimicked mix of European and American roadways, and signature track inspired by the Nürburgring. Takasu offers a diverse mix of surfaces and high-speed runs. It's also a place that has seen few Gaijin outside of Honda Acura employees pass through its gates. While taking in Takasu and other blistering couple of laps on the 3.85-mile, 17-turn track in the 2019 NSX, tightened up a few notches in its suspension hardware and related software departments, it struck me how serious Japan's top automakers have become about performance at the highest levels, how they've leveraged their heritage to create vehicles that pay homage to the past while pushing into the future. Toyota is the latest to step up with its new Supra. We just had a go in a prototype, showcased in this issue beginning on page 50, that was built in partnership with BMW. As was the case with the Toyota 86 developed with Subaru, Toyota again decided to share the burden. While there are those who will question the BMW tie-up, if the choice was to do it with the German automaker or not, to do it at all, more than likely the case, why wouldn't you? Tetsuya Tada, the chief engineer of the Toyota 86 and the man who also leads the Supra project, told us back in March that the Supra had to have a straight 6 engine. BMW had a straight 6 expert, and Toyota doesn't have one anymore. So yeah, it made sense. Tada also made it clear that the Supra will have a 50-50 chassis balance and will be a car Supra fans will appreciate. Based on our first taste of it, we're confident the new Supra will have personality of its own, particularly when it comes to how it handles. It will also go racing and will be the new face of Toyota's NASCAR efforts. Granted, that race car will be quite different from the production version. In other words, the Supra will carry the banner for Toyota performance cars, and that bodes well for not only the Supra's future, but perhaps also a future in which Toyota continues to develop more exciting models. Nissan was the first to bring back its signature performer with the GTR, and it's sending it off with a $1 million bang thanks to its 710 horsepower GTR 50 Special Edition, which was styled by the venerable Itao design studio. Like the NSX and the Supra, the GTR has a special place in automotive history. And since the arrival of the new generation in 2009, Godzilla has stomped across the world and over the competition with its twin-turbo 6 all-wheel drive and anime design. Although the GTR's future is uncertain, Nissan is committed to its Nismo performance sub-brand, and it seems like the perfect time for the company to redefine the GTR, perhaps with an electrified version along the lines of the NSX. Winding up the old-school NSX, hearing it and feeling it as I rolled through simulated European countryside in the wilds of Japan was a stark reminder that a determined group of people can do great things, can create a car that is worth reviving and evolving, no matter what the formula, or how it's done, or who it's done with. In an age where the automotive world is blasting ahead into uncertain territory, we should celebrate the fact that NSX, GTR, and Supra exist at all, because they represent so much more than simply another competitor in the market. They represent what we all respect and enjoy about the past, present, and future of performance and our enthusiasm for it, Japanese or otherwise. Then, now, forever, 50 years after its wares first hit shelves, Hot Wheels stokes automotive passions by Connor Golden. An inventor, an automotive designer, and a rocket scientist walk into a bar. Wait, that's not quite right. Let's try it again. In 1966, Elliot Handler, co-founder of Mattel Inc. and noted toy inventor, put together a team of crack developers that included an automotive designer and a bona fide rocket scientist. 6 billion toy cars later, Hot Wheels has played a key role in propelling California-based Mattel to its present status as the world's second largest toy maker behind only Lego. employing about 26,000 people and shaping the childhoods of millions more. Hot Wheels has come a long way in the past 50 years, along with many of those happy customers who trace the source of their automotive obsession back to their days of racing the 1/64 scale diecast cars across the playroom floor. And today, despite the rapid onset of societal digitization and a total annual production reaching into the millions, the brand's mission remains true to its roots. Before Mattel unveiled the first 16 Hot Wheels models at the 1968 New York Toy Fair, diecast toy cars were staged, production-based replicas that often appealed more to collectors than its budding enthusiasts. Those original Sweet 16, as the company calls them, changed things. Each dropped with a trademark Spectra Flame candy chrome paint and rode on red-rimmed mag-style wheels known affectionately as Redlines. The new offerings were a revelation. Instead of focusing on factory-fresh realism, Hot Wheels took inspiration from the era's hopped-up pony car cruisers and wacky concept vehicles. Car-crazy kids were hooked. The next 20 years were just as colorful. Even as Spectra Flame disappeared and was replaced by bright graphics and increasingly avant-garde design, these wild fantasy models, known officially as Hot Wheels Originals, incorporated contemporary graphic design and cues from pop culture. Defectors from automaker design departments joined Mattel from day one, including Hot Wheels with both design credibility and automotive shapes that could never escape car manufacturers' drafting boards. From the very beginning, all nationalities were represented in the Hot Wheels lineup, but American muscle dominated. The brand was built on the bedroom floors of baby boomers and Gen Xers, and models of Detroit's finest were perennial bestsellers. It wasn't until a few years ago that a gradual shift toward a new generation of enthusiasts occurred, with an unprecedented number of new castings represented cult favorites from Japan and aficionados. The classics are still here. Think 57 Chevy, 67 Firebird, but they are joined store pigs now filled with JDM legends and semi-obscure European hotness. If Twin Mill and Custom Camaro were the iconic first-gen Hot Wheels poster children, then castings like the Datsun 510 and Nissan C10 Skyline wagon were catalysts for nascent millennial collectors who value Integras and 240Zs more than Cudas. The yearly lineup is geekier now too. A Honda City Turbo 2 shares pig space with an Audi Sport Quattro, both downwind from a Lamborghini Countach space car, an obscure reference to when a Countach served briefly as Formula One safety car in the 1980s. Meanwhile, motorsports fill their desks with pint-sized versions of the Porsche 934.5, the Mazda 787B, and the Cadillac ATS VR. It's a younger brand inside and out, and it shows. Just as the Sweet 16 reflected the original era's hot rod mentality, today's Hot Wheels team is immersed in cutting-edge trends. The ongoing Car Culture series is one of the brand's biggest recent successes, pulling inspiration from shows, communities, and industry celebrities like Gas Monkey Garage, Magnus Walker, and Raw Welt Burghoff. Hot Wheels was born out of authentic automotive heritage, design VP Ted Wu said. Everything we've done has reflected the car culture of the time. I think that, especially recently, we've tried to continue on that tradition and try to really look at what's going on. Our team is full of guys that are tapped into what's going on with car culture. They're passionate about cars. They're car enthusiasts. They know what's going on with cars, and they want to reflect that in what they're doing. Hot Wheels works hard to maintain relevance as digital entertainment and video games continue to encroach on physical toy sales. Aside from some early success it had in the gaming space, Hot Wheels enjoyed both virtual and physical tie-ins with some of the biggest names in the business, including Forza, Gran Turismo, and Rocket League. According to Hot Wheels global brand general manager and head honcho Chris Down, Xbox's best-selling bundle featured the Xbox One S console, Forza Horizon 3, and a Hot Wheels expansion pack. Sales outpassed even the Call of Duty and Minecraft bundles. If you're 4 years old and you're getting your first Hot Wheels car, where are you going to go from here? You are at that point just a player, Down explained. Then you're 5 years old and you become an accumulator. I'm getting all the red ones. Then I'm 8. I might say, I'm done with toys, so I'm going to go to video games. I love Hot Wheels. Hey, I'm going to play Race Off on my mobile app. I'm going to play Forza Horizon on the Xbox. So far, this digital synthesis appears sound, resulting in a record year of Hot Wheels toy sales in 2018. We are a physical toy company, Down reassured. Hot Wheels is rooted as a physical toy object that reflects trend and culture. We're going to continue to be that as a central philosophy while we're acknowledging how kids are behaving today. There will not be a day in the future that I see where a 1/64 scale diecast car does not exist for Hot Wheels, and lots of them. That's fundamental. The art of design. No shrinkway necessary. It must be the easiest job in the world, right? Manufacturers send 3D renderings of production cars to the Mattel Design Center, Then artists hit the shrink ray and scale it down from 1:1 to 164. Add a snazzy paint job and check out. You would think you would take a car and shrink it down 64 times and you would have a Hot Wheels car, Wu said. The funny thing is, when you look at cars and you look at 164 scale, it's hard to get the essence of a car when you're just shrinking it down. So there's lots of creativity. There's a lot of design that goes into that. Every licensed Hot Wheel model you've ever shot down the famous orange racetrack or rolled across your desk were designed from a clean sheet. Pictures and 3D renderings of the actual car are invaluable reference material, but the final design is all original. For example, look closely at Hot Wheels' version of the 2018 Camaro SS. It's not a carbon copy. When you scale something down, it loses its character and its drama, so you have to exaggerate some aspects of the car that the small size to keep its character, said Adam Berry, senior creative designer for the real exterior for the 6th Gen Camaro. In general, what they do is make the Hot Wheels a lot bigger, crush the roof down, maybe even widen it, and they distill the design down to its caricature. Concepts and pre-production cars present the largest challenge. Sometimes the manufacturer releases an image before the car is approved for production. Manson Chung, a Hot Wheels designer and 3D modeler, said, "So we're getting a basic image with no extra angles, and I have to translate that into 3D. It's not ideal." The C7 Corvette Stingray was one of the toughest ones. It changed so much before the official launch. I started with a C5 or C6 as the base and had to modify as the concept changed. In a way, Hot Wheels reverse engineers the car back to its raw form. We have to do that in a certain way when we design a real car too, Barry said. So what we do is, when I draw a picture of a car, it's also a caricature. It'll be wider, lower, sleeker, bigger wheels and tires, meaner looking. Now I know it'll never be as cool looking as I drew it, but the thing is that my job will then become trying to retain as much of that vibe and feeling of that sketch through the 5 years of development and all the requirements of covering an engine, rolling down a window, crashing it into a barrier for safety, aerodynamics, performance targets, and all those things that they're going to throw at this shape. The same top-down process applies for Hot Wheels originals. These wild fantasy models account for a little less than half of the yearly lineup, ranging from hot rods and muscle cars to big block-powered shopping cart or four-wheeled cyborg shark. Although not as popular among serious collectors, originals are a big part of the company's approach. It's a fine balance, Wu said. Hot Wheels is such a special brand, it's got such wide appeal and depth, and while we have ties to automotive authenticity, we also know that we are a kids brand as well, and we have to make sure we're making stuff that kids want to play with. Real deals. For enthusiasts who dreamed of a drivable Hot Wheels of their own, 2011 was big. That year's SEMA show featured an antifreeze green Hot Wheels edition Camaro concept, pulling inspiration from the toys with special graphics, redline wheels, and a unique hood. A production Hot Wheels edition Camaro arrived in 2013, this time with kinetic blue metallic paint. 5 years later, the Hot Wheels edition returned to the Camaro lineup, now sporting Crush, orange, paint, and snazzy new badges and wheels. It's not as wild as its toy counterpart. There's no excessively raked windshield, oversized wheels, or blown out fenders, but that's primarily by design. There are so many different ways of doing stripes and graphics, Camaro exterior designer Barry said. We can make flames on the side or some wild, crazy stripe pattern, but my concern early on was that unlike a toy, where you could do something really polarizing and for 99 cents, somebody will invest in it. We're asking someone to spend $40,000 to $50,000 on one of these, and General Motors is left holding the bag if it doesn't get sold. My goal was to do a Hot Wheels car that was definitely seen as a real performance vehicle and something that was desirable regardless. By Design by Robert Comerford. Just for fun, we took a look at Hot Wheels Camaro through the lens we usually reserve for real-life vehicles. First off, employing a standard designer's trick and using photographs, I put a circle guide around a rear wheel of both the Hot Wheels Camaro and the production car. I then drew a tangent circle behind each version's rear tire. The inscribed circle showed the rear overhang on the real thing is a bit less than 1 tire diameter. On the Hot Wheels car, the rear overhang is only half as much, so the wheels are indeed too big, just as Adam Berry, the car's senior exterior designer, pointed out is typical. The same technique reveals on real Camaro's wheelbase is roughly 3.75 wheel diameters. On the Hot Wheels, it's 3.4 wheel diameters, so not too far off. The toy's black sill piece is still too thick, but to my eye, both the front and rear black pieces are as well. There are no side rear view mirrors on the little metal car, so we'll ignore that discrepancy. I do wish I could see some indication of headlamps, even just a touch of paint. This little Camaro is far from the type of caricatures created by the late famed cartoonist Dave Deal, but for the record, it's not accurate in proportions or details, and that's just fine. Look at the model and you don't need to turn it over and read the base plate to know what it's supposed to be. Under the Endless Sky by Zach Bauman. Scouring the Gobi Desert in search of the fossilized wonders of the Cretaceous. Dr. Zorget was quiet, his fingers tracing the exposed, fossilized remains at his feet. A scattering of ribs and the tucked structure of a hind leg lay all pale white against the red sandstone of the Gobi's flaming cliffs. The whole of humanity's understanding of natural history hinged here in 1923 when Roy Chapman Andrews found nests of what were originally thought to be Protoceratops eggs during one of his many Central Asiatic expeditions, confirming for the first time that the ancient reptiles were oviparous. Dr. B looked up at the crowd gathered around him, his deep brown eyes bright with excitement as he pulled a GPS from his pocket to mark the find's location. It was a new and slender piece of the natural history puzzle. When someone asked what the fossils were, there was no hiding the thrill in his voice. I don't know. As the head of the Vertebrate Paleontology Division at the Institute of Paleontology and Geology at the Mongolian Academy of Sciences, he's part of a small team working to catalog and study the nearly endless trove of Cretaceous period fossils hidden in that wide red desert. He has spent his adult life poring over the delicate remains of creatures that called this place home some 80 million years ago. The fact that the weathered sandstone can still serve up a surprise for him is a testament to all that's hidden out there. Dr. B, or Badma, as he insists we call him, works out of a small building in Ulaanbaatar, tucked in an alley behind a restaurant, a short hike from the expansive Soviet-era city square. Mongolia served as the perfect estuary between northern and southern Asia, its culture a finely grained mix of influences from its neighbors. So much of the architecture is Soviet, the signs lettered in Cyrillic, and nearly all the vehicles on the road are second-hand models from South Korea, Japan, and China. It's a miracle mix of right-hand drive JDM Prius hatchbacks with lifted suspensions to contend with the country's roads, or in some places lack thereof, hammered left-hand drive Land Cruisers, and Mitsubishi Pajeros. There are American market vehicles, the odd Wrangler or F-150, but they're few and far between. We were here at the Institute 2 days before, dust and grit crunching beneath the soles of our shoes, the smell of curing resin and earth thick in the air. The place had the feel of a library, quiet, safe, the tender scratch of tool on stone. Towering stacks of crates and plaster-wrapped fossils lined the main hall, all waiting their turn beneath the careful hands of patient workers. The research never ends, Badma says, pointing to a freshly opened plaster jacket, a complete Tarbosaurus skull, grinning inside its teeth longer than my palm. The massive carnivore is a cousin to the famous Tyrannosaurus rex, although Badma says recent research bolsters the theory that the beasts were scavengers, not predators. The hypothesis sprang from a close look at intact leg structures, including the ratio femur and tibia fibula. The math indicates they weren't the fast, lethal runners of cinema lore and juvenile nightmare. It doesn't make us very popular at elementary schools, Badma joked. Badma and his team have no shortage of work, thanks to a recent Infinity-sponsored expedition through the Gobi. The Japanese automaker and the Explorers Club Hong Kong chapter set out on a 20-day trek in June, covering some 1,000 miles of open Gobi in an attempt to map and document new potential dig sites. Much of that effort was aimed at leveraging drones equipped with LiDAR, a laser-based radar-like surveying method used for 3D mapping that also figures prominently in autonomous vehicle systems and other imaging devices, allowing paleontologists to scout more ground in less time, with higher resolution than before. In the past, the scientists have had to rely only on grainy satellite images to help direct their efforts, eyeing the topography for the shales and sandstone indicative of the Cretaceous and employing a bit of hit-or-miss guessing. The expedition unearthed hundreds of fossils, but for the scientists in Mongolia, the drone data is far more valuable, having mapped hundreds of kilometers of open desert down to the centimeter. The expedition identified some 250 previously undiscovered fossil beds, all of which will provide Badma and the other researchers at the Institute with years of productive exploration. Once a drone team possesses the footage, volunteers can scan the images, identify fossils already on the surface, and tag their GPS coordinates for paleontologists to examine in the field at a later date. It's difficult to convey how amazing that is. Just getting to the Gobi from Ulaanbaatar is a feat. Flights from the capital to Dalinzagrad, the closest airport, are unreliable, subject to cancellation due to crushing rain, dangerous winds, or both. Our Fokker 50 touched down in dawn's dim hours just long enough to dump us on the tarmac and take off again. The pavement ended at the airport parking lot, terminating in a spider web of two-track ruts that sprawled out into the darkness. Seeing a line of gleaming Infinity QX80, QX60, and QX50 models waiting to ferry us across the desert was a shock after a day in the capital. They looked like a line of high heels and a row of hiking boots. We threw our kit into a QX80 and climbed in, figuring that, of all the machines there, the Nissan Patrol-derived Brawler would be the best suited to bashing across the desert. It's 2 hours from the airport to the 3 Camel Lodge, our base camp, and we naively hoped to catch a few moments of sleep before sunrise. Except dozing in a vehicle requires a road, and where we were going, there's no such thing. Our driver calmly aimed the truck at the taillights ahead, dim red orbs in a thick sea of dust, and planted the throttle, ripping across the ground at 60 miles an hour. Our world shrank to what the headlights could touch, scraps of low vegetation, khaki sand, and opaque walls of airborne grit. These machines had already endured the expedition across the Gobi, suffering more abuse in a month than most Infinities will ever see in a lifetime, and they had the rattles to prove it. It was hard to reconcile the vehicles with the place. Infinity isn't a brand known for trudging across the wastes. It doesn't even have an official dealer network in Mongolia. But productive science and exploration have always courted the support of open-minded individuals, organizations, and corporations, be it for the glory or profit. When asked why Infinity would commit to a project like this, the answer was always, why not? It's an unusual response from an automaker now, when every answer, name, and paint code must be pressed and filtered through workshops, attorneys, focus groups, and marketing teams. And while it should have come off as a stunt, it didn't. Because of all the automakers touting themselves as rugged go-anywhere brands, none of them were so bold as to launch themselves at the Gobi. We weren't tearing across the darkness in a Jeep. We weren't doing our best to outrun the sunrise in a Land Rover. We didn't dart through the center of a herd of camels in the G-Land wagon. We did it in an Infinity. Mongolians like to say that it's better to have seen their country once than to have heard of it 1,000 times. Likewise, for men and machines, it is better to do a thing once than to spend an eternity claiming you can. By the time we arrived at the 3 Camel Lodge, we were ragged with adrenaline, the first soft light of the morning just beginning to beat back the night's grays and blacks. Every sunrise is a gift, but there are slim words for what we saw as the sun rose. Land, unfettered by field or fence from horizon to horizon. I was unprepared for the endless miles of sky and the sprawling green desert, an ocean of it, the sights of which requested a stillness in everyone. A herd of horses watered nearby, more than I've ever seen together in one place. Mongolia has more than 4.5 million of them, and the nomads who tend their herds in the Gobi count them by stallion. One male's harem might hold 2 mares or 12, plus all their foals. Mongolia is a country that will not stop amazing you. The lodge is its own wonder, a strap and beam building with beautiful arched eaves, a place for the weary and wonderstruck. Its owner, Jalsa, met us on the front porch with an open bottle and a warm smile. He's something of a national legend, having helped bootstrap Mongolia's tourist economy once democracy came to the country in 1990. He grew up in a Mongolian community in Howell Township, New Jersey, after his parents fled Stalin's persecution in the 50s, started his own construction company, made his fortune, and helped form the North American Mongolia Business Council in 1991. Nomadic Expeditions, a company that specializes in tailoring trips deep into Mongolia for Western visitors, sprang from the council, and the lodge arose as a logistical extension as an ecologically sound luxury accommodation for those visitors. It's staffed entirely by Mongolians, all of whom were paid a wage on par with or in excess of what they would make in Ulaanbaatar. The place is without connectivity of any kind. There's no internet or cell phone reception, a true oasis. It served as our base camp for 2 days as we wandered the region in the Infinities, following our guides deeper into the Gobi, sifting through sand and searching for fossil alongside Badma. Fossil hunting, even with the added benefit of detailed drone mapping, requires patience and a keen eye. It's much better to be lucky than good, Badma said. Most of us are neither, but it was still spectacular when one of the group spotted the find at the Flaming Cliffs the day before we were set to depart. The remains had lain right there in the stone for 80 million years. It was a very real connection, a spark across millennia to see and touch them now. In a few weeks, once the journalists packed their bags and headed home, Badma and his team would return to the find, carefully unearth it, and transport it back to Ulaanbaatar to see where it fits with the puzzle pieces already gathered, to see what story it could tell us.
I am so excited